Welcome back to Fitness or Fiction, a podcast dedicated to cutting through the hype of the health and fitness industry.
Every week, we dig into a new topic and help you wade through the real information to make solid decisions on your fitness journey.
Boom! We are live. Welcome back
To Fitness or Fiction,
a podcast about fitness.
a podcast dedicated to cutting through the hype of the health and fitness industry. Today, we're going to do a little poetry. To follow the program or not to follow the program? That is the question.
Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of 1,000 misfortunes.
1,000 reps.
You didn't expect me to know the next line, did you?
I definitely did not.
Yeah, no. You should have known better.
So, on this episode, we want to talk about essentially random training yields random results. That's a quote that I actually said to a lot of people when I sold them training or enrolled them in my training, being like, after doing a consult and lay down the periodized plan and lay down the game plan and then tell them, if you're not actually planning, then you're planning to fail, failing to plan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I actually really like that conversation. So the way we landed on this one, should we tell the story?
You go ahead.
So the way we landed on this one was we were talking about the concept of it's a topic that we're going to tackle at one point. Hard to start, harder to finish. And, in a lot of ways, you'll see people that they can get started, but continuation and seeing something through as it pertains to fitness is kind of a hard thing to do. For myself, I was on a very regimented program for years under Larry and then Henrik and then Aslan. And when I stopped doing weightlifting, it wasn't my choice to stop, but it was something I had to do at the time. And when I didn't have that focus anymore, I used to walk around the gym lost. Like, it was so weird engaging in exercise again because I had been so structured for so long.
Yeah.
But this conversation is often framed as it purports to say that not having a plan is bad. And I understand that side of it, but I think there's another argument or another discussion to be had on how that can actually be something that's very good and a good aspect for people to have in their fitness. Is that fair?
That's fair. Yeah, we can explore the topic a little bit. I think when we start to get into it, though, at least speaking for myself, for the years that I've been training, I have done less programs and more consistent play and kind of just random training in my gym life than I have actually executed programs. I think I've only maybe banged out, say maybe let's ballpark it 10 programs in the last 10 years. Yep. And if a program only lasts 4 weeks, that means I haven't done that many programs, but I've done a lot of play and I just consistently play. So I would say I'm above average for in shape, but I definitely feel like if I was following a program with a specific target in mind, I definitely feel that I would get the results that I'm looking for faster.
So let's frame up the arguments and do it kind of separately, one at a time. Is that fair?
Sure.
I think it'll be easier to follow. So do you want to take the side of the contention that random training and we'll call it play is a good thing, or do you want to start with limitations of said principle?
Well, let's do it as a good thing first.
Okay, I like it. Let's start with it's all going to be good. Spoiler alert.
Okay.
It's just different sides of a coin. So this is something that's usually referred to as a bad thing. And for me, I think that the higher truth to exercise is going to be consistency for the most part.
The highest truth, yeah.
Yeah, so I've had people tell me, I know you don't like yoga. I'm like, no, you don't know that about me at all. I do like yoga.
I've personally done yoga classes with you.
Yes, and I enjoy them. I like them. I think the place that yoga sits, in my perspective, which is only my perspective, is that it is best utilized for finding quiet time and finding kind of that spiritual aspect to relaxation and connecting with your body. I think that's its best use. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have utility in other things, but if you want to say specifically train a shoulder, we're not dealing with a scientific approach to training that joint. So I say that's the limitation.
Yeah, and if you actually listen to like high level like yogic instructors, like they often say, at least in the North American variation of yoga is so specific and focused on like the workout function of yoga rather than the spiritual connection. And I'm not a yogi, so I can't speak to it that well. But when I listen to the high level guys, that's essentially what they're saying in like North American culture.
Yeah, so I think there's actually higher truths to particularly training a joint issue that would involve assessment and direct targeting. But I digress. At the end of the day, if somebody wants to create space for themselves to have time to do something, do some stretching and maybe get some more ranges, is yoga a bad thing to do? I would say absolutely not. It's a great thing to do. Given the choice of that, or you're not going to do anything, I would take yoga 1,000%.
Yeah.
Which isn't statistically possible, but that's what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the random training thing, the biggest value to that is it's easier to find consistency if you can engage in something where you can auto-regulate, choose something you enjoy, especially if you have people to do it with.
Mm-hmm.
So like you and me, when we hit the gym, it's very rare that we'll actually do a program. It's like, hey, let's try to do this. Can you keep up?
We're going to do this today.
We're going to play horse. There's value to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you want to speak to the value of play in working out? What are the positives that you have noticed? So random inputs in some ways, but what are the not so random outcomes that you've had?
Well, definitely, like I'm a little torn on the issue because again, like it is two sides of the coin, like you say. Like I believe that like foundational things and basics, like sometimes a really good structured program to get you results can be a little bit monotonous, a little bit tedious, a little bit repetitive, and quote unquote boring. And I think that's where I struggle personally with following a program is I don't want to do the same 4 days of exercise for 4 to 6 weeks in a row, even though I'm quite aware that will progress me nicely and I'll definitely see results in those specific areas. For me, why I guess I opt in for playing more so is that it just kind of gives me the freedom of expression, I guess, or creativity to kind of like, well, today I want to bodybuild, and then tomorrow I'm going to like Olympic weightlift, and then I'm going to do gymnastics. Like it kind of like gives me those options, I guess, personally.
I think freedom is a big thing, especially for you. It's a unique scenario because you're not just some guy. You're not guy in garage. You've been involved in the industry a long time. You've had good coaches. You've been around other good coaches. You've seen a lot of variability. So I think your ability to feel something out based on how you're feeling that day is much higher than the average person too.
Yeah, and I was going to say that as like a caveat to this methodology of play, like going to the gym and kind of doing whatever I want. Like I have very good body awareness and like doing a body scan. Like when I go into the gym and be like, well, what did I do yesterday? What did I do the day before? What's actually hurt and what's taxed and what's available to me? It's
Right.
probably higher than your average person in order to execute said play. And having been trained by multiple people in those things, I'm like a jack of all trades when it comes to different expressions of movement, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like I don't claim to be a master sensei in any art of exercise, but I'm relatively proficient in most styles. And I don't think the average person is. So like when we opt in for play for the average person, it's not something that I often suggest to people, like to your average Joe, being like, you know what, you should just train like me and do whatever you want, like play.
I actually really like the idea of people having space to go and explore and practice.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that that's a good thing, even for somebody that's newer, like really connecting with, okay, listen, you've been through this many phases with me. I want you to do a day where you're like putting together your favorite stuff for the core, and we'll talk about how it went. I think that it would be really valuable for people to actually kind of go through that and see what they remember and explore and stuff. I think that it's a lot more challenging than people would expect, though, because when you have more options, things almost get turbulent.
I have actually tried to coach some of my more long-term clients to do that, and some of them are just generally resistant to it. Like if I'm like, okay, I'm going to build you a 3-day program, and on day 4, I want you to kind of explore, do what you enjoy, feel it out, play around in the gym, and they're just like, just tell me what to do on day 4. Like, just give me just put it in there.
Yeah. Well, and that's a stylistic thing, but meeting somebody where they're at as far as style can be a big deal too. Give people enough freedom that they can enjoy the kind of the fruits of their labor and see how things are changing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that in a lot of ways, the exploration of movement and the play aspect is really good for your head, especially for certain styles of people, but also like it shouldn't be vilified that you're doing something. And that's something I struggle with therapists and doctors. I had a new guy named Glenn that I was talking to, and he said, "Oh, okay, so as we straighten out what's going on with my neck, should I not do anything else?" And I'm like, "No, absolutely, you should do other stuff. You know, should you do stuff that hurt you? No, but like you really enjoy cardio. Should you do some cardio? Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's a great idea to take more movement away from you."
Yeah.
So I think on that side of the coin, there needs to be this balance with like having a foundation for how do I set up a structure, but also getting an understanding of like, this is how I explore and this is how I can enjoy movement. Like I'm on the playground with my kids. I might as well see how many times I can go across the monkey bars. Yes. I think it's very good for the head to just get out there and play and just experience life that way.
Yeah, you said something before we actually started recording. I've honestly always felt a little bit insecure for the fact that I don't follow programs because I actually preach programs to all of my clients. I preach the value of the program, like you have a specific goal that you're looking for, so we need a specific program to get you there. But I myself not really doing it, and my goals though are not very specific either because I just love exercise. I've reached a point in my my personal fitness where it's just a passion. I just love to move and I love to just feel good, whether it's chasing a pump, chasing a skill, or lifting something heavy or getting out of breath, like all of the above. I enjoy it. So there's nothing really specific, but I've always said to people like random training yields random results, and you're like, yes, it yields results, which is kind of where I'm at, and I've never seen it that way before personally.
Well, at the end of the day, what you have available for you and what you've cultivated is that you're treating movement as an end instead of a means, which there's some real truth in that. And that's why I'm saying that to you, is that for you, have you had results over the years? You don't have a sore back anymore, man. Like let's start there. I remember when that was not the case by any stretch.
Yeah.
You're in the sort of shape where you can do what you want to do, which means you own physical freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not in a sort of situation where you feel self-conscious going to the swimming pool. So you've created a situation for yourself where you're treating exercise as the end itself. You're exploring movement and enjoying the process. And that is kind of the goal. It's like, well, I'm kind of living what I want. So do I need something really custom to go after right now? I don't think you need to be self-loathing over that.
Do you think though, so like we're speaking a lot to obviously me personally, but do you think that it's ideal for your average gym goer to essentially train the way I am? Because I don't think so. They don't I feel like the average person is going to lack the experience and the coaching, the knowledge.
I think it's a harder sell than people understand. Like, all the things that go into what you do, you actually do have more structure than you think. If I talk to you through what your program looks like, you do have more of a defined kind of setup than you think.
Mm-hmm.
If I walked you through a month, you'd see a mosaic come together, and the average person can't do that. But I also don't want to vilify it to the extent where it's like, well, if you're not on a custom program, you shouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you know what? If it's move or don't move, choose movement.
Mm-hmm.
Explore it, do what you can with it, and I'd love you to get more educated on what you can do and how to do it and all these things, but the foundational level is, are you moving? Say yes, that's a good thing. Even if you're just doing quote-unquote low-level cardio and you're going to do it daily for 20 minutes, I'll take that, man. And would I like to build on that a little bit more because I think it'll add to your life more? Yeah, sure. But I don't think that we should throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Mm-hmm.
So that for me is like, we don't want to vilify moving for the sake of moving. And really, it's a really high truth to talk about exercise being the end and not just a means, because that is a beautiful thing if you can get somebody to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So on the other end of it, though, do you want to talk about the other side of that coin?
Which side of the coin?
So we talked about like the positive
like it's
side,
a good thing. You want to talk about the negatives about random training?
So,
I'm actually more curious about Big Biceps McGee over here. Like how, not me, mine, don't look at me. Oh God. No, for you, I most of the time I think you're on a program. So like over the last 10 years, are you on a program 90% of the time, 75% of the time?
From 2008 to 2014, consistently on a program,
Yep.
habitually on a program.
Yeah.
From 2014 to 2020, almost never.
So you've been off program.
Like I was off program and freewheeling it. Like
So-
you were doing some gymnastics with me. I would do some big pumps with LJ. We'd do like some muscle up workouts and stuff like that, especially when my leg was really bad.
So those biceps are random, is what you're saying?
Well, I'm working with Adam from N1 and Caleb, and they're helping me work through some stuff right now. So I've been on program again for the last 8 weeks, and for me, being on program, I'm on dietary program and exercise, which is very rare for me. I've only ever been on a diet where I actually tracked what I was eating one time, and it was for 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So the last 8 weeks is the longest I've ever tracked what I'm eating. And I put on 8 pounds of lean body mass in that time frame. So I'm experiencing again what you can accomplish if you have a defined goal. And my defined goal is I want to be more muscular than I've ever been dealing with what I'm dealing with, because that would just be something that's nice to accomplish.
Yeah. So over the last like 10 to 14 years-ish, you 50% on program when you were like chasing your Olympic weightlifting, and now then you're off program playing for a long time. So that's all I wanted to know. So going back to the coin, like the more so negative aspects of random training and not really having any structure.
So this is going to get into another topic. We're going to have to talk about it on another day, but we already opened it up where it's like, yeah, starting a program is challenging, but people will pay the money to get their program, and they'll get like a 6 or 8 or 12-week program. Sometimes they'll pay a lot of money for that, but a lot of them don't actually see it all the way through. And if they do see it all the way through, they're not getting all the details right, because that takes a lot of engagement from the coach, and not all systems offer that.
Mm-hmm.
So I see a lot of people buying programs and not getting out of them what they wanted, and oftentimes it's because they didn't finish them and they didn't really know what to expect as far as results.
Yeah.
So, the negative side of this coin is, how do you stay motivated if you don't know exactly what to expect and make sure that you're on the right path?
Yeah. It's funny. I just had a client, like someone reach out to me in regarding to asking for my training, and I was talking to them about session costs and programming costs and things like that. And I even said, like, like a program's not mandatory. You can treat our training sessions as just essentially tune-up sessions or learning sessions, like however you want, like whatever you want to get out of it. But a program's not like 100% mandatory. And she's like, and she's had multiple trainers in the past, and I know those trainers gave out programs. And she's like, man, I've started so many programs, I've completed about none of them. So she's like, I don't think I really want a program because never actually completed one. Started a lot.
So we should probably talk about that at some point. It's going to be a whole different topic, but what is it that allows you to complete a program? And I talked to a client this morning. He's a very successful client named Chase, and no more back pain after 10 years. Really good. We've accomplished a lot of good stuff. He's like, I don't feel like we're on the same page right now. We need to talk. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely we do. So we talked. And he was concerned about what the next phase looked like as far as the amount of exercises in the sets and all this sort of stuff. And at the end of the day, what it ended up coming to was that I hadn't communicated well enough for him what to expect. So he was concerned about what he was going to get out of it. And we came to an understanding, but I think in a lot of ways, sticking to a program, you need to understand what it is, make sure that it's doable for your schedule, for your skill set, for your confidence levels, and then you need to know what to expect out of it.
Yeah.
Because when you talk, like we were talking to Diane, and she was saying, well, as a lay person, quote unquote, it's hard for me to know what to expect. How much should I see in a week? Because I have friends that tell me, like, in 2 days, like, I haven't noticed a difference, and I've been eating really well. It's like, oh, that's really interesting. So,
yeah. And it's funny too, like, even when you say that, like, I've run into situations where I've thought 10 steps ahead, but I only communicated 2 steps ahead to the client, and that causes them anxiety because they either A, like, think that I'm not on the ball, or B, like, maybe we're lost, or they just don't know what's happening. But like, and then I'm like, oh wait, and then I'll like spin the laptop around and be like, this was actually the plan. It's actually 10 steps ahead rather than the 2 that you're thinking. So let's talk about these 10 steps and make sure that you're aware and you're bought into it and it all makes sense. We're on the same page. But that's just more of a communication of like just getting ahead of myself and not actually bringing it up to the client, right?
Yeah, I like to discuss that as I have the video, but you have the picture.
Yeah.
So communicating with them what's coming next and what to expect and all that sort of stuff. That is all part and parcel with staying on a program. But I think it would be a really hard thing to say that random beats targeted. I think that would be a really hard conversation to create. Like if you created that contention, it would be hard to back up.
Yeah. Specifically where Diane is dealing with it, I know this person probably listens to this podcast and they're going to be like, oh, they're calling me out.
Oh.
It's a she, and she's been actually training with myself consistently for a while, and she's been executing her programs for a while. She's doing a really good job, like really good job. But she's not getting the aesthetic changes that she would like. She's not dropping the pounds like she wants to. And lots of like impatience and frustration with it. Like, oh, it's not working. Oh, it's not working. And of like, trying to set those realistic expectations. We've had these conversations of like, this is what the realistic expectation is, the outcome. And like also the nutrition plays a part in it. But it's just like, and then when you say like have these conversations that like the message goes in and she's like, yeah, 100% understood. I get it. But, and then like the tweak comes, you know what I mean? Like the little tweaker twitching in her eyes where she's like, why isn't it changing? Like, and there's frustration with, without getting the result that she's looking for.
Right.
That's kind of the situation.
Yeah. Well, and those situations, it's like anything else. And I would say this is actually the strength of a program. Because in a program, you can say, well, you're putting in these inputs and we have information. So we can make informed decisions. Whereas when everything's random, you can't make informed decisions because you might not have the information. Whereas when you're on a program, you can make informed decisions because you have the right information and you can adjust to what you're seeing and plan for it. So that's one of the main benefits is like, well, how am I going to work through this? Because here's all the inputs that I'm putting in. And in a lot of cases, in my experience, you can draw to like, here's what I'm not focusing on. Mm-hmm. So I've had people that like, oh, my diet's locked in this week. And then I look at their sleep log and it's like, well, 4 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. Like you're low energy? Weird. Right?
Yeah, and those are just like when you talk about the information, that's just the information that we don't really have. Like a lot of the time when you're just dealing with a personal training client in general, like I have my precision nutrition level 1, but I don't really like to build people meal plans. I'm not a huge believer in meal plans, and I'm not, I believe there's value into tracking macros, but only short term, because I think for a general lifestyle client, I don't think that it's realistic to track your macros and measure your food for the rest of your life. So I think tracking macros is best to do it short term to kind of understand your portion sizing and then try to execute it more automatically, autonomous, So, yeah.
Yeah, for me, when I look at food, this is a really interesting conversation because I've exercised enough that I haven't really thought about what I eat for most of my adult life. And it wasn't until my diagnosis that I started making adjustments. And that was hard. And then tracking for me was really different because I was just so used to just eating what I wanted. I think that tracking can be a very positive experience if it's treated right. And for me, I've only been doing it for 8 weeks and it's so much faster and easier now. I have like pre-saved meals and things that I know that I often eat. And so now it's like a real easy part of my day, but that's only important if it has the importance for that person's current goals.
Yeah.
Importance for that person's current goals.
But the importance has to be high enough though for you, like you're eating this way for your like health because of your MS diagnosis. Right. Whereas somebody who only wants to lose 10 pounds, but if you want to lose 10 pounds, but you're already in a relationship and it's been a long-term relationship, you don't need honestly, why do people want to look good? Like, why do people want to look, quote unquote, like sexy or aesthetic? And a lot of the time it's boils down to looking for the part, like looking for your partner.
Write that down because that's a good conversation to have. That's a longer conversation because there's a lot of psychological underpinnings because it tells you about how you present yourself in the world and your readiness state to express what you can express. Mm-hmm. So Chase, I already mentioned him in this episode. He right now is not worried about performance. He's getting on the golf course. He's a pro golfer. He's not worried about performance right now. He's really happy with how he's performing. He's like, I need to look great on the golf course so I can carry that confidence through my game.
Yeah.
So why do people want to look good? There's a lot of underpinnings there, but at the end of the day, it's like, does that take precedence right now? Is it worth the amount of effort that you're putting in? And sometimes the answer is no. Like, if you have a lot of other things going on, you got a kid coming, you got all this sort of stuff, you got all these other worries. Do we need the extra stress of I need to have everything locked in and weighed and all that sort of stuff? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the macro tracking that I do, it's like I have an idea of how much meat that is. I'm not going to go and weigh every last thing. That would ruin my day.
Yeah.
It's like, I went to Gaucho's. How am I going to figure out what that is? Well, every golf ball portion is going to be around an ounce. So it's like, I had like 20 ounces. Yeah. Half was white meat, half was dark meat. Cool. We'll call that good enough. Is it perfect? No. Is it some data to go on? Yeah. So,
yeah.
At the end of the day, I think that the whole random results random impact inputs leads to random results is fair. That's a fair statement. But I would rather take a random input rather than no input.
Facts.
Well, if you made it this far, thanks for joining us. If you want us to dig into any more of these topics, go ahead and leave us a comment. Please like and subscribe. It's always good to hear from people that are following and get some feedback on what they want to talk about. So,
yeah, I think this episode definitely diversed into a couple different potential topics. So if anything wants to be dug into specifically, definitely let us know. But for now, we love you guys. Thanks for listening.
Have a good day.
Thanks for joining us this week. We appreciate your support.
If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you would subscribe, follow, and throw us a like on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts.